He's not ugly, he's just... What she said next shocked everyone on the call. She was on a group video call with her friends when I overheard her say, "He's not ugly, just forgettable." Then she added, "If I walked out, he'd probably write me a poem instead of getting mad." That got a round of laughter from all of them, loud, cutting laughter. What she didn't know was that I was still logged in on her iPad. I didn't write a poem, just a short message. "You're easy to forget, too." She's called me 62 times since. Funny thing is, I never thought of myself as someone who stood out in a crowd. Before I continue, don't forget to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss new and interesting stories. Put likes. But back to the story. I'm 52 now. I've done well for myself, but I've always kept it low-key. Built my construction company from the ground up, turned it into something solid. I drive a 5-year-old Silverado, not flashy, but it gets the job done. I own a house with a view, not to show off, but because I worked hard for it and earned that peace. People tend to describe me with words like steady, dependable, and reliable. Rarely exciting. Never unforgettable. Lena and I have been together for 3 years. She's 47, twice divorced, and works in pharmaceutical sales. We met at a business mixer. She actually came up to me first. Said she liked how I didn't act like all the other guys trying to show off. That was how it all started. Our relationship was solid. Not flawless, because none ever are, but it worked. We didn't live under the same roof. Each of us kept our own space, but we saw each other 3, sometimes 4 nights a week. We traveled together. We made plans. Marriage was on the table, eventually. After her youngest finished college next year. I'm not some starry-eyed kid. At my age, you've seen enough of life to understand that people don't always show you who they really are. Still, I genuinely believed what Lena and I had was real. If nothing else, we respected each other. That Tuesday night, she was staying over at my place while I worked late on a major project estimate in my home office. Downstairs, she was on a video call with her wine club, 5 women who'd all been friends since college, each divorced, and proud of it. They did these calls twice a month, catching up, laughing, and drinking. Normally, I keep to myself and don't listen in. That night, though, I needed to double-check some numbers on a blueprint I'd saved to my iPad. Lena had been using it earlier to watch a movie. She liked my iPad Pro better than her own. As I opened my office door to head downstairs, I paused near the bedroom. Her voice caught my attention through the half-open door. One of her friends, Ivy, I think, asked, "So, are you and Caleb still talking about that move to the coast?" I think Lena laughed. That specific laugh she had after a few glasses of wine, the kind that made her sound smug and amused. "God," she said, "can you imagine me spending my golden years in some sleepy beach town with Caleb?" Another voice jumped in. "What's wrong with Caleb? I thought you said he was solid." "Solid, yes." "Exciting?" "Not so much." Lena's tone changed then. It was that voice she used when she wanted attention, when she wanted to be the center of the conversation. "He's not ugly," she said. "Just forgettable. If I ever left, he wouldn't yell or fight. He'd probably just write me a poem." Their laughter wasn't kind. It was the cruel, hard kind that sticks with you. "At least he's loaded," someone else said. "That's part of it," Lena replied. "And he's handy when things break. But let's be honest. Remember Cabo? Those guys at the resort bar? That was excitement. Caleb? Caleb's just reliable." More laughter. Then someone asked, "So, what's the exit plan?" Lena said, "No need to rush. The market's down. His investments took a hit last quarter. I'll wait until things bounce back, then stir up a little drama. He'll either propose, which means I get half down the line, or he'll do his noble, heartbroken goodbye. Either way, I come out ahead." I stood there, completely still, holding the tape measure I'd forgotten was in my hand. My ears were pounding, my head buzzing. 3 years of memories hit me at once. Our trips, time with her kids, talks about the future. Turns out, to her, I was just a wallet and a wrench. I've felt anger before, when my first company failed, when my brother passed before his time, when clients tried to short me. But this wasn't anger. This was clarity. Without a word, I turned around and walked back into my office. Closed the door behind me. Opened the iPad, which was still logged into my Apple ID. Lena had used it to stream movies, but she'd logged into all her own accounts, email, socials, banking apps, everything. I can't say I'm proud of what I did next, but I wouldn't go so far as to say I regret it, either. I spent the next hour quietly digging through her digital world. That Cabo trip she joked about? Turned out it wasn't a joke. Happened 6 months ago, the same weekend she told me she was at a sales conference in Phoenix. Her credit card records showed charges for 2 people at an oceanfront resort. And the photos? She never shared those with me. There she was, smiling beside a guy I'd never seen before. And it didn't stop there. There were other so-called girls' weekends that were anything but. Text threads between her and her friends talked openly about different men. Some messages mocked things I'd said, or how I dressed, or even how I handled money. They'd laughed at me behind my back. And then I found spreadsheets. Actual spreadsheets. She put together rough estimates of my net worth, predicted my earnings, calculated it all like a business deal, while I thought we were building a future together. But I didn't lose my temper. I didn't yell, didn't throw anything or slam a door. I've learned that real strength, especially at my age, comes from keeping control not over others, but over yourself. When her call finally wrapped up, I waited, heard her pour another glass of wine. Then I walked downstairs, iPad in hand. "Good call?" I asked. She smiled, casual as ever. "Just the usual," she said. "The girls being dramatic. Nothing interesting." I gave her a nod. "I need to grab something from the garage. Mind running upstairs and grabbing my reading glasses?" As soon as she went up, I grabbed her suitcase, the one she'd packed for the 3-night stay, and set it by the front door. Then I tore off a piece of notepad paper from my desk and wrote a short note. Nothing poetic. Just plain and to the point. "You're easy to forget, too." I placed it next to her wine glass on the kitchen counter, then walked into the garage and closed the door behind me. About 20 minutes later, I heard her call my name. Then again, louder, followed by the rustle of her picking up the note. The garage has its own exit. I used it. I got in my truck and drove to the same 24-hour diner where, 2 decades ago, I scribbled the first draft of my business plan on a napkin. Sat at the counter, ordered my usual black coffee, and turned off my phone. The next morning, I drove straight to my office. First call I made was to a locksmith. Told him I needed all the house locks changed that day. Then I rang my attorney and had him review every account, asset, or document Lena might have even the smallest tie to. After that, I called my assistant and asked her to clear my calendar. I needed the day. Only then did I turn my phone back on. 62 missed calls. 38 voicemails. 53 texts. They followed a pattern, just like you'd expect. First came confusion, then anger, then the finger-pointing and threats, then the bargaining, and finally the tears. "You can't just walk away from 3 years. I'm calling a lawyer. You can't throw my stuff out like this. Please, Caleb." It was just wine talk. I didn't mean any of it. "I love you. Let's fix this." I didn't respond. Not to a single one. Instead, I arranged to have the rest of her belongings packed up and delivered to her house. No drama. No confrontation. I sent one email. It included the delivery details and a note that if she needed to say anything else, it would have to go through my attorney. The weekend after I left Lena, I drove up to my cabin in the mountains. It's not a luxury spot, just a small place with 3 rooms and a deck overlooking the valley. I bought it 15 years ago to be a quiet escape from the world. Lena had only been there twice. Both times she complained about the poor cell reception and how rustic it all felt. After that, she stopped coming. Now, I sat on the deck with a glass of bourbon, watching the sun slide down the mountains, lighting the peaks with gold. My phone stayed off. The only sounds were the wind moving through the pines and, now and then, an eagle calling overhead. I thought I'd feel shattered, angry, maybe even hollow, but I didn't. What I felt was a strange calm, quiet, and sure, like something had finally clicked into place. I stayed there 3 full days. Chopped wood. Took long hikes through trails I hadn't walked in years. Slept better than I had in a long time. When I finally turned my phone back on, there were another 40-some missed calls and more than 60 unread texts. I deleted them all. Didn't read a single one. Once I got back to the city, I buried myself in work. We were preparing a bid for a major hospital renovation, a project big enough to take the company to a whole new level. I threw myself into work, clocking 14-hour days without complaint. I buried my head in spreadsheets, triple-checked estimates, and met with every subcontractor I thought might be a good fit. My team noticed the shift, the way I dialed in tighter than usual, but they were smart enough not to ask questions. 2 weeks rolled by. The calls from her kept coming, though they started tapering off. She even showed up at my office once, but security turned her around at the front desk. That's when the mutual friends started popping up again. The ones who hadn't reached out in months suddenly had all kinds of reasons to call or drop by. I gave everyone the same answer. It didn't work out. I wish her well. That was all I was willing to say. About a month later, Wes, my business partner and friend of 30 years, finally got me alone after a team meeting. He leaned on my office door and crossed his arms. "Caleb, you've got to talk to someone about this. You can't just shut down." I looked at him, this man who'd seen me through my first marriage falling apart, through failed ventures and the slow climb back up. "I'm not shutting down, Wes," I said. "I'm just moving forward." He frowned. "Well, she's telling people you snapped." That you had some kind of breakdown. Says you lost it over a joke. Makes you sound unhinged. I gave a half shrug. The people who actually know me don't buy that. So what had happened? He asked, this time softer. I opened a folder on my desk and handed him a few printed screenshots, copies of everything I'd saved from that night. The photos, the receipts from Cabo, the messages she never meant for me to see, even the spreadsheet where she'd put a $sign on our relationship. He didn't say a word for a long time, just flipped through the pages with a quiet kind of disbelief. When he finally looked up, all he said was, Jesus, Caleb. Some lessons, I told him. Just show up a little later in life than you'd like. We ended up landing that hospital contract, the biggest job we'd ever taken on. It became my whole world for a while. I didn't mind. The work gave me something real to focus on. A mountain of complexity with clear, solvable problems, exactly the kind of challenge I've always liked best. Then Lena tried something different. She sent a handwritten letter to my house, 10 pages long, on that fancy stationery she always liked. I recognized the envelope before I even opened it. I didn't read a single word. Wrote, address unknown, across the front and dropped it back in the mail. Another month drifted by. Now and then, her name would still light up my screen, but by then, I couldn't even remember what ringtone I'd assigned her. It was just another number I didn't feel the need to answer. Not long after, I accepted a project out by the coast, the same beach town we used to talk about. Ended up buying a small place there. Nothing flashy. Just another smart investment. One evening, after grabbing dinner by myself, I was walking out to my truck when I heard a voice behind me. Caleb. I kept moving. Caleb, please, she said again, her voice closer this time. Can we just talk? Like adults. I turned. She looked different, smaller somehow. Like the certainty she used to wear had been stripped away. She stepped forward, trying to bridge the distance with words. 3 years, Caleb. Doesn't that count for something? Don't you think it deserves at least a real conversation? I studied her for a moment. Once, I thought she was the most beautiful woman I'd ever seen. Now, I didn't feel anything. Just a kind of quiet finality. The woman I thought you were? I said. Yeah, she probably deserved the conversation. But the woman you actually are? She doesn't. Her eyes were shiny, her voice pleading. It was just talk. Dumb, drunk talk with friends. Haven't you ever said something you didn't mean? Not about someone I claimed to love. She stepped in even closer. I made a mistake, Caleb. People screw up. They say things they shouldn't. I shook my head. Forgetting a birthday is a mistake. Leaving the toilet seat up, sure. But calculating someone's bank account while planning your exit? That's not a mistake, Lena. That's character. Tears started slipping down her cheeks. Tell me what I can do to fix this. I opened my truck door and looked at her one last time. Nothing, I said. And that's the point. So that's it, she asked. You're just going to erase the last 3 years like they never happened? Pretend I didn't matter? I paused with my hand on the doorframe. You know what's funny, Lena? I'm not angry anymore. Not even sad. That night, you said I was forgettable. I let the words hang there for a second. You were right. But here's the twist, you're forgettable to me now too. Then I got in my truck and drove off. And not once did I bother to check the rearview mirror. It's been 6 months since all that happened. In that time, I've grown the business out to that little town by the coast. Ended up buying a home there, too modest, but it's got a view of the ocean that makes the early mornings feel like a gift. Once a week, I share dinner with a retired architect, smart woman, kind, sharp in a way that doesn't try to impress anyone. She's helping me design a new project I've been planning. We're taking our time, no rush. It feels honest. Every now and then, Lena's number still pops up on my phone. I see it, sure, but I couldn't tell you what her ringtone was anymore. I guess I forgot it somewhere along the way. Same with her laugh. Same with that gut-deep sting I felt that night. It's just not there now. People say getting older means learning to lower your expectations, that you take what you can get. But I've come to realize it's the opposite. Getting older means raising your standards, expecting more from life, from people, from yourself. More truth, more respect, more the real stuff. I don't need to leave some grand impression on the whole world. That's never been who I am. I just want to matter to the right person, and for them to matter just as much to me. You know, a lot of folks think revenge has to be loud, burning bridges, dramatic exits, making sure you leave a mark. But I found the most satisfying kind is quiet. Just proving someone wrong by living better, by building something stronger when they thought they'd broken you. That note I left her, you're easy to forget. 2, it wasn't just a jab. It was a line in the sand. A vow I made to myself in that moment. And if there's one thing I've never failed to do, it's keep a promise.